What do we have here, Evelyn?
This is an Evelyn Patricia Terry piece, a combination of sewn pieces that I put together because I did have a huge stash of prints from my printmaking years at school. So I just started tearing them up and sewing them together. So this is in the collection of Cedarburg and
Randy Bryant.
Randy Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is in the collection of Cecilia Gore and Randy Bryant, and Cecilia was given this piece as a gift from a presidency tenure of a board that she served on.
Okay.
And that started her collecting, she said.
Look at this unusual piece, and we don't even know the name of the artist on this one.
Yeah, we know hardly anything except that it's Ghanaian, because the person who collected this piece was traveling, and she normally collects artwork when she's traveling to remember, and to keep a treasury of things she's seen in the world. And she travels a lot. Most of her collection is from her travels. This piece is threaded, and I have no idea how anyone could thread this like this. I'm sure they probably have it as a custom in their particular region of the country.
Right.
But you'd have to see it in person,
right,
to see how all of these threads go different ways.
To make different light patterns.
Yeah, to make light patterns and to get you interested. Like, it kind of draws you in a lot.
And even the green on the ground is done in such a way that you almost are seeing shadows on the figures
right.
below.
Mm-hmm. So I was looking at this, trying to see that, but it's also in different patterns of different directions of sewing.
Right.
To make all of the reflections happen.
Mm-hmm.
The patterns of sewing, I've never even seen anything like that.
Let's
move.
This
is the collection of Dominique Samari.
Aha, she's quite the world traveler then.
Yeah, she travels a lot on her breaks from working.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, tell us about what we have here.
Okay, this one is by Trenton Baylor. Trenton Baylor and Reginald Baylor are artists, brothers, and he's a professor. He teaches sculpture, and we were fortunate to get this piece contributed by a collector who now lives in Illinois, but she used to live on Sherman Boulevard, and her name is Carol A. Barnett. So
tell us about the Madison artist above.
Romano Johnson is a self-taught artist, and his work is very popular. I've seen it a lot at Deborah Brenner's gallery, the Portrait Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And we also got to visit his studio where he has a lot of work. And it reminds me a lot of another artist, Simon Sparrow, who was there, but I'm sure he hasn't seen it. But it's because of the use of glitter.
Sure. And who collected Romano Johnson's work?
From June Perry Stevens and Bill Stevens.
Okay. Ooh, and look at this one.
Yeah, this one is by Reginald KG, and it's acrylic or watercolor on paper bag. And that's the way Reg is. He works in all sorts of non-traditional thinking media, and he's a self-taught artist. And this is, we were told it was a self-portrait.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a collection of Corey and Michelle Nettles.
Yes.
And we have another self-portrait. We'll get to that later. But right here we have Ken Brown, a Milwaukee artist.
And Ken Brown has been doing well. He's just got a big commission, I think, to do a mural in the county or in a building downtown.
Yeah, near the courthouse, I think.
Yeah, the courthouse. And he did one in Black Cat Alley.
Okay.
And using this particular style where you can see figures in it, sort of.
Yeah, I am seeing figures today for the first time.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, and that's acrylic, and that's in the collection of Winston.
Mm-hmm. And here is another self-portrait, kind
So
of.
this is a self-portrait of Jimmy Lee Sudduth, and it's from the collection of Della Wells. And Jimmy Lee Sudduth is widely collected, and if you go on the internet, you can see. I always was impressed by the fact that when Della would go to Kentucky, it's an annual festival, Jimmy Lee Sudduth would always start taking his work off of his truck, and as he took it off, people would buy it. So by the time he got to set up his booth, he didn't have to. He just sat there all day, and people would give him awards, and they would be all over his clothing.
Okay. Well, let's see some of the interesting sculpture along here, too.
Okay, so this is Rhonda Gatlin Hayes, and this is in the collection of Fatima Laster, and it's mixed media. And she's been doing a lot of imagery influenced by African design and patterns.
Is she a Milwaukee artist?
She lives in Milwaukee, and she's more of like an emerging artist, but she has grandchildren, so she started making art, and it's starting to grow to look like, to mature into a particular style at this time.
And here we have two George Ray McCormick sculptures.
Right, this George Ray McCormick piece is from the collection of Mary Ali Masai, and he often used these
Coils?
Coils with little houses, and sometimes they're on other larger sculptures.
And here we have another found object sculpture by the same artist.
Yeah, it's George Ray McCormick Sr., and this is in the collection of Troy Yancey. And George loved thinking about flying. So he was always making these little creatures out of some kind of found objects he collected all the time, and he welded them together. Also, this creature here is a flying creature because it has wings.
Sure. Oh, this is so amazing. This one.
This piece is by Harry Whitehorse, who was in Madison and did a lot of carvings. So this seems to be modeled after a larger piece that he did for the Wisconsin, I don't know if it was WIDA or Wisconsin Arts Board, but in that building in Madison, there's a larger carved one, but this one is a smaller edition
Okay.
of epoxy resin pieces. And I did speak to his wife or communicated with her, and she did not know which edition and how to determine what the number of pieces were in that edition. But I found it to be very interesting because in researching it, Superior Spirits is the title. It's in the collection of Wyman Winston. And I know him very well, but I never call him anything. So Mr. Winston, and this piece has spirits around a Superior Lake. So it's all the things that are around there. Different animals are represented. Foxes, you can see. What is this one? A wolf or what? A bear, maybe. And of course, his heritage as
So
Native
this is
American.
epoxy, and do you suppose a mold was made for it first?
Yeah, I'm sure because it's an addition. So
Sure,
they had
sure.
to make a mold to get that. I see a duck too, several ducks.
Okay. I'm just kind of giving an overall scan of our east wall again. We have quite a few
I know.
works up here.
This one was a gift also from Blaine Gibson to his wife Maureen it's her retirement party.
Right.
And
And
she didn't know he was going to buy it for her.
okay.
But somebody was there sketching it, and then he went and picked
Yeah,
it
this
up.
is a pastel by Chris Bears from Mequon.
Right. And this one is from my collection, and that is Laura Easy Jones, and it's an acrylic painting on, I think, canvas.
Okay, artichokes and eggplants.
Now that one is by Edgar Jeter, and that's in Janelle Elder Green's collection. And this is a smaller piece by him, but he did do a lot of larger pieces.
Really? Larger
like
than
that.
this?
Yeah,
Wow.
and it must be heavy.
And look at, here's another one that Janelle collected that's also kind of a family portrait.
Right, in front of a church, and it's you can see it. I didn't see that before. The little cemetery out there.
Mm-hmm.
This one is by Richard Miner, and he was a farmer, and he had property north of here. I don't at this moment remember where he lived up north, but he did a lot of artwork. I think he even sewed. He painted in lots of media and painted a lot about his farm.
Okay, this is called 3 Generations.
Okay, and that one is Janelle Elder Green. And this one is by Della Wells, Seek Thy Truth and Thy Will Be Free.
A pastel by Della.
Pastel, yes, and that is in the collection of Fatima Laster. This one is by Ife, and Ife is a filmmaker, known as a filmmaker, but she did this piece after a piece that I don't remember.
I think, is it a Renoir luncheon
Looks like
party?
it, yeah. And it's in her mother's collection. Her mother is Una Vanderbilt.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, let's move along here.
This one is by Sanji Hunt, and it is a quilt, and it's a smaller version of, she does large quilts, and it's a small version of it, sewn, and it looks, I don't even have any idea what you would call what Sanji does,
Yeah.
but it's like layers of
And
work.
who contributed
And
this?
that one is from, let me go look, because I forgot. I'm getting 2 of these people mixed up, which is June Perry, and the other person is Nancy Simeon. So, let me see where that is. Nancy Simeon.
Okay, and Nancy Samuel Lone.
Yes.
And
This one is Una Vanderbilt. That's her loan, and it's the artist Gerald Dwayne Coleman. And it's Traponto in watercolor.
yeah, quite a mixed media work here with fiber
Yes,
and
fiber.
shells and paint as well.
And it's probably from one of those Orishas.
Sharon Carey Harlan
And that's
work
a
here.
collage, yes, and that one is from June Perry Stevens.
Okay.
And Bill Stevens collection. That one up there is a Della Wells contribution alone, and it's sound not nicely, and it's definitely mixed media.
Right. And here's a work by
By
Della.
Della Wells. That's a piece of art by Della Wells, a collage. And this one is loaned by Cecilia Gore and Randy Bryant.
Called My Hip Hop Man, Mixed Media Collage. Okay, let's move on into the other room here. We have American artists on one wall, one area of this gallery section, and then we'll see international artists on the other side. But tell us about this. We have 2 works by the same artist here.
Right, and they're in 2 different collections. So this one is Della Wells
On the top,
on the top, and this one is loaned by Fatima Laster. And
So-
this is Michael Banks, and Michael Banks exhibits a lot at Kentucky, which is the festival that Della attends a lot and shows her work through, and which really helped her to make a national presence for herself, because from there she's gotten into the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and several other galleries. But he's there too, and his work is
yeah, I understand he's an Alabama artist, but nationally known.
yes.
And tell us about this mixed media work here. We have a flag
It's a
of
flag.
sorts.
Yeah, and this is Fatima Laster. She started doing these flag pieces mostly about America, from what I understand. And this is brutality against women by policemen that have gone astray.
Oh,
And so that's what this piece is about, and it's also done in pinks and blues that, would be like women colors.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the collages that you see in there tell stories that she's
Sure,
taken
it's
out of the
newspaper.
newspapers
Mm-hmm.
or magazines.
Here's an interesting assemblage.
Yeah, this one, I forgot who the artist is, Marvin Tate. This is from the collection of Fatima Laster. Now, did I say that was in my collection?
You didn't, but this work is collected by Evelyn Patricia Terry.
Right.
So we have,
Yes. That's Fatima Laster. And
And
in this particular assemblage, mixed media assemblage, is loaned by Fatima Laster.
right, so we have some confusion here with,
Right.
with artists as collectors and
Yeah,
collectors as artists.
Right. So I think we have 3 of us that are artists as collectors. So this one is from the collection of Calvin and Dorothy Greer, and it's by an artist. His name is the Kinsey Jew, and he's also called Edward Bubbles Miller, and he lives in Milwaukee. This one is called The Jazz Man,
Wow.
and it's oil on canvas. Great.
Oh, here we have quite a wide work that Blaine Gibson brought home from Guatemala.
And I never did really know how to pronounce his name, but it sounds like it's Antonio Vasquez.
Vasquez.
Yoakum, or is that
Yeah.
right? Yoakum.
So Blaine and Maureen met this artist when they were in Guatemala, and this represents the Guatemalan people going on their journey to a sacred site. And so you see all the white hats are of the men, and you see the dark, long braided hair are the women, and there are a few children down below. And
I wonder what the bags are. 'Cause this
yeah,
one has a bag, and look at this is coming out of that bag. These.
I understand that these interesting white shapes are banks. They are owl banks.
Okay.
And it's what the Guatemalan people, where they put their savings, because they do not trust the banks.
Oh, okay. So that one is oil on canvas. That's very textural, and the colors are.
Can you imagine how he got this painting home? I cannot imagine how he got this home from Guatemala. It's.
Do you think he rolled it up?
I think so. I think so.
Maybe so. Yeah. So this one is Thelma Johnson, which it was hard to get any information. I did certainly do a lot of research, and what was said is that she probably got this around 2000, and she was older, so they think she passed away. So it's in the collection of Josephine Hill. And Josephine is somewhat like Dominique. When she's collecting, she gets information when she can, but mostly she just buys what she likes and is attracted to and what's in her budget, like most of us do, what's in our budget. So this she got when she was in South Carolina.
So
it was outside of a conference where maybe the pieces were selling for thousands of dollars inside, but there were several women who made baskets in the marketplace outside of the conference.
Probably just as high quality, huh?
Oh yeah, you can tell it's an absolutely gorgeous piece. I don't think you're supposed to touch art, but I just wanted to show you that. It's so beautiful.
Right.
Yeah. So
Sweetgrass is the medium.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, tell us about this assemblage.
And this one is by Della Wells, and one of her traditional uses of several media to make a stunning image about women. which is what she concentrates on, making art about women, although sometimes there are men in it. But this is in the collection of, I forgot, Mary Ali. Mary's gonna get upset with me, but
No.
I'll tell her I really like it a lot. It's great. But I'm happy she contributed it.
Yeah, it's very different. Well, it's similar, but yet so different from a lot of Della's other works.
Yeah, she does a tremendous range of work with, like I hadn't seen the raisedness of this box area before.
Okay.
So yeah, that's.
Well, now we have some other works that were acquired internationally. Look at the colorful applique we have here. What country is this from?
This says it's from
Zimbabwe. Okay.
Right, and that's contributed by Troy Yancey in her travels. She often is traveling somewhere, interacting with people, and she did bring a lot of information about this piece as workers, I guess.
Right. Oh,
and
women.
there's the artist's name, but I do not know how to pronounce that name. Very nice. Okay, so this one is it's Fritz Rock, and it's contributed by William Johnson, and it's oil on canvas. He travels a lot.
From what country is this from?
Haiti.
Okay.
Yes.
Very
It says
unusual.
Port-au-Prince.
Okay.
But he travels a lot and collects, I would say, African diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So is that a big area of collecting for the collectors in the show, would you say, the African diaspora?
I think a lot of them collect from the African diaspora, and I would have to really think about it, but it's mostly people who are traveling. Fatima's traveling. William, who else?
Troy Yancey.
Troy Yancey, and there are several others that, June. But
Okay.
I don't know if she's concentrating on the diaspora, but.
Mm-hmm. And here's some works by Dominique.
And of course,
From-
Dominique Samari has to be put in that group collecting from the diaspora, the African diaspora. This one, I know these came from Cuba because I was with her when she got them somewhere in the world.
Okay.
And this one, you go into this one or that one?
Well, here, this is another one by Kirsten,
This
right?
Kirsten's Ghaznavi, and that's in Sequoia Blackwell's collection. And that's made of markers. Now this one is another Troy Yancey piece from her travels to Zimbabwe Bay. This one is
More embroidery.
Yeah, the other one was applique, and that's embroidery.
So this is called Fertility? Is that correct? Or untitled, but she has a little subtitle suggesting the subject.
Is this part right here? You have to do all this to get to that fertility part? I don't know.
Okay.
Look at all the colors on the black. It pushes the color out like that.
Pretty amazing, large work. And what was interesting about the biographies that she brought back of these two artists, the one that did the applique and the one that did the embroidery, is that these women who are doing this beautiful handwork are supporting their families with this.
So here's her name. Maybe you could zero in on that because I don't know how to pronounce that.
Okay. Well, and are there any other themes you'd like to talk about of things that people like to collect? Do some of them just collect women's images?
Right. Okay, there are several artists, well, two, that I know collect women, and that's Nancy Simeon. And she likes to support women as artists, as well as mostly collecting women images. Troy Yancey collects maybe from women artists, not necessarily looking for that, and not necessarily only that, but she concentrates on it.
And what about Nancy? Did you say Nancy Simuel?
Nancy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right.
And other people collect maybe a diversity of things, like Corey Nettles and Michelle Nettles. They collect a diversity of nationalities, and they travel too and collect art in other places. I'm trying to think of who else collects something in particular. Una Vanderbilt, she likes to collect people in her neighborhood or area.
Okay.
And
so sometimes collectors help to support emerging artists, wouldn't you say?
well, I don't know if they help to support emerging artists. I was saying when I was writing about it is that collectors are in a distribution network that supports art and culture in cities and states and in regions and nationally and internationally. They're all in that, what do you call it, distribution network.
Sure.
And so they basically are the lifeblood of artists, and I welcome them always.
Well, this has been an amazing show that you've put together, Evelyn. But one thing we've kind of learned is there isn't really one overall theme that we could say to wrap it up. There's so much diversity here.
I guess I said in the paper or in the statement that a lot of times people say African American artists and they think, or African American collectors or artists or anything, they think it's all one thing, that they're going to see one kind of thing. And basically, this show tells you that you're not going to see one idea. It's several different ideas. And even like in a household, with Corey Nettles and Michelle, they collect things that they each like separately. And in the statement that he made, he said that they were collecting at first, decided to put art in their home, but they couldn't agree, because at first they had to agree. And then finally they said, if we want art, we're going to have to just do our own collecting. And the other person would find a way to get along with it.
Okay.
So I know that it seems that Randy collected like 27 years before Cecilia even started. So they do separate collecting also.
Okay.
And there are probably some other things to think about. Insurance, how people think about insurance value. They all think differently. Most people buy what they like and what they just feel good about, and they don't necessarily care about the value. I know in talking to Michelle, she said that they look at the value when they have to get the insurance papers on the work. And I know Cynthia always cares. She told me, Cynthia Henry, that she always cares about the value. And she thinks about the future that it might have. But I'm not sure if it really stops her from buying something.
Sure, sure.
And a lot of people also gift their work, sometimes from their collection, but mostly a lot of collectors want to encourage other people in their families to collect. So they will maybe buy something. Some people make sure that they don't give anything out of their collections. And I'm probably like that because I did it a couple of times and then I didn't feel good. Like I sold a piece out of my collection.
Oh dear.
I felt very bad about that for several years.
Oh, okay.
And, so I don't usually move anything out of my collection unless I, after a while, become annoyed with it or something. And I
Okay.
can say I have done that, become annoyed with something because just rubbed me the wrong way after a while. So then I gifted it to somebody because I had a lady who came over and she said, it's a friend of mine, she said, Evelyn, you have so much work in here. Can't you give me one piece? And I said, sure. So I went and got the piece that I was a little annoyed with and handed it to her, and she was really excited about it.
Well, new lease on life for that artwork then,
Right.
and going to a different
The other
home.
thing that was different is how different people collect, how they think about collecting. Some people just run into something. And I think Corey Nettles said that he'll go out into a gallery and look at things, at artwork, at high points and low points in his life. And a lot of people just are roaming around intentionally looking for artwork, but Troy Yancey says she's not ever intentionally working on collecting. But a lot of people like Mary Ali say she just loves art, and so does Janelle Elder Green. She said that she couldn't envision a world without art. And so I think a lot of people really just love the idea of the work around them, like Wayman Winston. He just loves the idea of collecting and having something wonderful. And he didn't like to let it out of the house.
Oh.
But we were able to convince him to contribute several pieces.
And we are so thankful.
Yeah, there's a piece that he contributed, Munir Buhadin. Can we look at it?
Oh, sure.
And Phyllis Thompson. We could just look at that real quickly. I'm glad we're still in here.
Oh.
So this is by Munir, and Munir is a ceramic sculptor, as well as he does a lot of drawings. And this is a mixed media piece from Women's Collection. And this is in Winston's collection. Can you get a light at it?
Yeah, there we go. I'm trying to get the reflections out of that. This is thread and colored pencil.
Yeah, and that's Phyllis Thompson, and she was in Milwaukee for a long time, and then she moved, I think, to upstate New York.
Yes.
And this is, like you said, thread and pencil. She works differently with paper, and she's basically a printmaker.
This actually is a work from Costa Rica that was collected by June Perry Stevens and Bill Stevens. So that's in our front window of the foyer. So,
Yeah,
and the material is very interesting. It's from a mangrove
growth and
ecosystem. So
and we
very
said
interesting.
June Perry Stevens and Bill Stevens. That's when they were traveling, and she saw it and had to have it, so she got it and told her husband he had to carry it back. And when she said he was unhappy with it, she was very happy to have it.